How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Almost Intellectual. So today I've got a pretty awesome story from CNN. They finally admitted Trump is not a fascist. I know, it's crazy. We'll go ahead and get into that story and also everything that Biden has done executive order-wise since he was inaugurated on the 20th. Let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, everybody. So from CNN opinion pieces, we have Trump is not a fascist, but that didn't make him any less dangerous to our democracy. Over these last 5 years, I have often wondered how political analysts who have compared Donald Trump's presidency to the rise of Nazi Germany would feel if a time machine sent them back to Berlin in 1933. They would be stunned in the differences between now and then. Unfortunately, there are no signs of these comparisons abating anytime soon. In the wake of the attack of the U.S. Capitol, alarmist warning of fascist America have gone into overdrive. In a video he shared on Twitter, Arnold Schwarzenegger told us that the January 6th insurrection was the day of broken glass right here in the United States. Kristallnacht, if you're not familiar. Basically, that was the day that a bunch of brown shirt Nazis, supported by the state, by the way, went out and just trashed a bunch of Jewish-owned businesses and things like that. And that's when they began rounding up the Jewish people, which did not happen here. In any case, I don't know why you would try to compare anything that happened here to that horrifying event. It's just, to be honest, it's disrespectful. The action hero turned politician described the infamous anti-Jewish pogrom that presaged the Holocaust as a night of rampage carried out in 1938 by the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys. Once again, just not really true. I'm glad that CNN actually put out an article showing how ridiculous this comparison is, because I've been waiting for 4 years. Now that Trump isn't in office, they can go ahead and write something like this without being called a racist. I mean, look at this guy, Thomas Weber here. He totally looks like he could get called a racist. So Schwarzenegger's message is noble, but the reference to Nazi Germany is a misguided one. The night of broken glass did not bring democracy down. That had already happened half a decade earlier. It was not carried out by the 1930s version of Proud Boys. It was a state-organized attack that resulted in 30,000 Jews being arrested and sent to concentration camps in selfishness and cynicism, and had not paved the path to the pogrom. Yeah, it's totally different situation, night of broken glass. Thank you, CNN, for finally saying this. For finally agreeing that Trump is not the fascist y'all have made him out to be for 4 years. You called him a fascist. Now you can say that he isn't. Well, I mean, this guy Thomas did have to put it as an opinion piece to get it on CNN. So Schwarzenegger's intervention is a classic example of the historic record of European fascism being rewritten to fit political messages that warn against Donald Trump. The underlying message behind invocations of Europe's dark past is clear. Trumpism is fascism, and even under Joe Biden's presidency is here to stay. See? Thank you. He is exactly saying what I've been saying, that no, Trump is not a fascist. You can have your disagreements, but if you're going to sit here and argue that he's a fascist, that's just freaking ridiculous, okay? All right, before I get too angry, I want to show you guys that one. That's just a small piece here. Yeah, Trump is not a fascist, but they didn't make him any less dangerous to democracy. Let's go ahead and look at what Biden has been doing, though. So right here from CNN Politics, we have a list of all of the executive orders that Joe Biden has passed. 30 executive actions in 3 days, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if anybody's going to be a fascist, it's going to be the guy that's on top, one person, making sweeping government regulations that affect every single American without going through the traditional system whatsoever. Just passing all these ridiculous executive orders. I've had a problem with this since these executive orders have been going around. I've had a problem with this since Bush used these executive orders. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it needs to stop. Not increase to 30 in the first 3 days. So we're going to go with, let's go all the way to the bottom. Let's start at the beginning. So January 20th, directs OMB director to develop recommendations to modernize regulatory review and undo Trump's regulatory approval process. Once again, he's just tying people up with red tape. So that's only going to make it longer for people to get what they need. Requires executive branch appointees to sign an ethics pledge, barring them from acting in personal interest and requiring them to uphold the independence of the Department of Justice. Okay, so they are an ethics pledge based on what? A lot of these executive orders here are going to be kind of working together. So an ethics pledge is going to work together with another one later on, where Trump had banned a lot of this critical race theory in government training and stuff because they were making white people go to special camps and apologize to black people for their racism. That's just ridiculous and racist. So that's going to work with that. So basically, they're not allowed to be normal people anymore. They just have to be tools of the state. An immigration one here extends deferrals of deportation and work authorizations for, what does it say? Liberians with a safe haven in the United States until June 30th, 2022. So basically, you just extended a bunch of Liberians thing. It's not really that big of a deal, but why didn't we do that normally if that was the thing to do? Well, Congress doesn't normally want to do that stuff because it costs a whole lot of money. So instead, he's just going to do it from the top. Anyway, okay, so let's get down to another immigration one. Halts construction of the border wall, terminating national emergency declaration used to fund it. We already funded a whole bunch of it. That's like building a car 3/4 of the way through and then just scrapping it because you don't like the car. It's just ridiculous. I mean, you might as well just finish it at this point because, well, unless you want open borders. Oh, I'm sorry. We're talking about Joe Biden, who probably does want open borders. Okay. So, undoes Trump expansion of immigration enforcement within the United States and reverses Trump administration's restriction on U.S. entry for passport holders from 7 Muslim-majority countries. So, basically, even though that action was upheld by Homeland Security and several other organizations inside the U.S. who said, yes, these are for Homeland Security reasons because of massive terrorist infusion from those regions. That doesn't matter at all because he was racist when he did it in the first place, right? All right, anyway, so fortifies DACA after Trump's efforts to undo protections for undocumented people brought into the country as children. Yeah, that's because, okay, so the protections that they're talking about is basically that their parents can't be deported because they brought a child in. So what's happening a lot of times is they're actually faking it, and it's not really even their child because there's no way to truly check that. And they're just coming in anyway, and these children end up getting abused. It's actually one of the largest hubs of how children end up into smuggling rings is through illegal immigration across the U.S. border. So, I'm not even sure which number we're on right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're on the 7th one here. Requires non-citizens to be included in the census and appointees of congressional representatives. So our representatives are to represent all the citizens of the United States, but now they're going to be representing non-citizens as well. That makes no sense considering these people don't pay taxes whatsoever. I'm paying, me and you taxpayers, we're the ones paying these congressional budgets. We're the ones paying for these guys' checks. Instead, now they're going to be representing a very, very large amount, possibly in the upwards of 3 million illegal immigrants. It's just, it's ridiculous. And guess where most of them are is California in these, safe haven places. Of course, so these people are just going to get more representation, and hardworking Americans are going to get shoved more into the dirt. Equity prevents workplace discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. We already had that. That's part of the Civil Rights Act. Why would he need to... Okay. I guess the only portion that's different is gender identity. But that can be misconstrued for a lot of things. And, oh my God, it's just ridiculous. Okay. So, rescinds the Trump administration's 1776 commission, directs agencies to review their actions to ensure racial equity. Yeah, so the 1776 commission, I believe, was related to basically getting a lot of this this critical race theory out of our schools and out of our federal funded organizations, which I absolutely agree with, and teaching the proper things in schools as well. Like we all got taught about racism in America. We all got taught about slavery. Let's return it back to the standard instead of now they focus on this, what is it called? The 1619 project. Go ahead, everybody who's listening to this, go out there and look up the 1619 project and tell me it's not completely crazy. Okay, so we also have cancels the Keystone XL pipeline and direct agencies to review and reverse more than 100 Trump's actions on the environment. So I'm assuming that's the reason why they don't really elaborate too much on that one is because that one's the one that actually stops fracking and shuts down huge portions of the oil industry, which he said he wouldn't do, but he did. He has shut down more than 10,000, or I think it's actually more than 30,000 jobs off this whole Keystone XL pipeline thing. And Canada is very angry with the United States because that is a breach of contract that we had with them to build this thing. And it also makes it almost guarantees our energy independence on foreign countries such as Saudi Arabia. So yeah, rejoins the Paris Climate Accord, a process that will take 30 days, which did nothing. None of those agreements are even barring. First of all, the United States has been one of the only countries to lower its carbon footprint since entering it, and we lowered our carbon footprint under Donald Trump while we're out of it. You know who hasn't? China. China has been blasting smog into the air. China is a horribly polluted country, and basically a lot of countries actually. I didn't know this until recently. A lot of countries actually paid to have China dispose of their trash. You know what they ended up doing with it? They dumped it in the ocean. They didn't dispose of anything. They just dumped it in the ocean, let it be everybody else's problem. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the Paris Climate Accord is only a bad deal for the United States. Let's go ahead and get on to the next one. Extends the existing pause on student loan payments and interest for Americans with federal student loans until at least September 30th. Okay, that one I actually can kind of agree with. We don't need to be charging people a bunch of interest when the government shut down all this crap anyway. So let's move to the next one. Extends the existing nationwide moratorium on evictions and foreclosures until at least March 31st. Now, I don't agree with this one for a very, very good reason. There are a lot of people who are literally just using this to their advantage so that they don't get kicked out and not paying their rent whatsoever when they probably can. We've had to deal with it several times. In fact, I made a full video on it. If you guys will go ahead and go through my stuff, you can check that out and why this was a bad idea. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to the next one. Creates the position of COVID-19 response coordinator, reporting directly to Biden and managing efforts to produce and distribute vaccines and medical equipment. We already had that position. It was supposed to be Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx's position. Dr. Fauci doesn't do a very good job, though. So, stops the United States with withdrawal from the World Health Organization, with Dr. Anthony Fauci becoming the head of the delegation to the WHO. So, do you know why we pulled out of the World Health Organization? Because they literally ran stuff like the United States may have started COVID-19, completely dismissing the fact that it all started in Wuhan, China anyway, and this is all China's, or I wouldn't say it's China's fault, but it started there. And they got all uppity about that, and guess who pays them the most money? The United States. And they still would not give us any kind of, respect, or nothing. And they were wrong a number of times. They've been caught doing it. We've been able to prove it. Anyway, so we should, withdraw from the WHO because they weren't able to accommodate us, basically. It's like, would you keep paying a gym membership when half the time you go there, it's just like every machine is, sweaty dudes are all over it. It's not clean. The water fountains never work. Would you keep going to a gym like that? No, you'd cancel. All right. So next, launches a 100 days of masking challenge, asking Americans to wear masks for 100 days, requiring masks and physical distancing in federal buildings. Already a thing, by the way. I don't know why he had to sign a thing. We already were doing that. In federal buildings, on federal lands, and by government contractors, and urges states and local governments to do the same. Yeah, so we were already doing that. I don't know why we have to have some executive order coming from one Caesar, emperor-like character to do this. By the way, we just got done with the first day. I know, it's going to be a little long. Stick with me, people. A presidential directive to restore America's leadership, support the international pandemic response effort, promote resilience for future threats, and advance global health security and global health security agenda. Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean anything. To restore, what do you mean? That's not doing anything. That's just saying a bunch of words. All right, let's move to the next one. Creates the COVID-19 Health Equity Task Force to help ensure an equitable pandemic response and recovery. Health equity? Did you catch that, people? Equity. By the way, they're not talking about equality anymore. Notice that word is almost not even mentioned anywhere in here. So what that is that's going to be a special division that takes your skin color or your gender and specifically focuses on that to deliver you better or preferential medical treatment. That's just racist. Anyway, so requires mask wearing in airports and on certain, we already had that, and on certain modes of transportation, including trains, airplanes, maritime vessels, intercity buses. International travelers must provide proof of a negative COVID-19 test prior to coming to the United States. So the only thing that actually changed was the COVID-19 test. Everything else we've been doing the whole time. Why did we need an executive order for it again? Okay. Calls on an Occupational Safety and Health Administration to release clear guidance on COVID-19, decide whether to establish emergency temporary standards, and directs OSHA to enforce worker health and safety requirements. So we needed an executive order to get clear guidance on COVID-19? What is that? That's just dumb. I'm sure there's already guidance out there. And this is just a nonsense executive order once again. Directs the Department of Education and HHS to provide guidance for safely reopening and operating schools, childcare providers, and institutions of higher education. He wants to kill your grandparents. That's what he wants to do, because we were told for freaking months that no, we can't open schools because it's going to kill the old people. This is ridiculous. The double standard is just absolutely ridiculous. So he wants to kill your grandparents just like Donald Trump did. So directs FEMA to create federally supported community vaccination centers. Why haven't they been doing that already? They're set up for that. That's what they're supposed to be doing. We've been tapping their money the whole time. Did CNN forget that? Oh, no. Of course they clearly forgot that, because they don't want to focus on anything Donald Trump did right, which this is one of them. He didn't do it by executive order, though. He didn't have to, because everybody agreed, and he just did it within the law. This is a big, basically, crony establishment version of press. Well, we're going to fix all these things real quick with all of this crap. You're not fixing anything. Half this is nonsense. Half this doesn't do anything. Okay. Enhances the nation's collection, production, sharing, analysis of the coronavirus data. How? You just can't say things and they happen. What do you mean it enhances the nation's collection, production, sharing, and analysis of coronavirus data? And why haven't we had that analysis the whole time? Because Donald Trump has been asking the entire time, we need as much data as we could possibly give. He dumped a bunch of money into it, too. Much more money than any of these have even amounted for yet. More money than any president has put into these kind of programs in a long time, because nobody's had to. Anyway, so this is the ridiculousness here. I'm going to try to calm down, get through this. Establishes a, what does that say? Preclinical program to boost development of therapeutics in response to the pandemic threats. Enhances a preclinical program to boost development of therapeutics in response to pandemic threats. Are you talking about Operation Warp Speed? Something Trump did? Once again, they won't talk about anything Trump did right. Establishes the Pandemic Testing Board to expand U.S. coronavirus testing capacity. You can't just do that. Once again, they're just making up stuff, saying some words, and everybody's expecting that magically fixes things. The testing capacity is based off how many locations there are and how many people can run them. From what I understand is we've never had enough nurses. Nurses have always been like an easy to get job. Well, I wouldn't say easy to get. What I mean is that there's jobs for it everywhere, because we've never had enough nurses. Even before coronavirus, I remember people complaining about that there's not enough nurses. All right, so directs FEMA to expand reimbursements to states to fully cover the cost for National Guard personnel and emergency supplies. You mean those National Guard that she called to the Capitol riot? Or to the Capitol Hill, because it was well after the riot? Yeah, good one. Accelerates manufacturing and delivery of supplies for vaccination, testing, and personal protective equipment. How so? Oh, yeah, that's right, because you employed the Defense Production Act, which, when Donald Trump was toying with that, you guys called him literally a fascist. Literally a fascist for trying to, for even mentioning that, even though he never used it, because you know why? He said he never had to, because people just agreed with him, because it was the right way to go. No, instead you have an actual fascist in government now, an actual guy who's put out 30 freaking executive orders like a goddamn emperor in 3 days. That's ridiculous. Calls for an assistance to those who are struggling to buy food, missed out on stimulus checks, or are unemployed. Calls for assistance. Once again, a no-nonsense wording. What does that even mean? What kind of assistance? What are you calling for? What do you want done? Please. And then finally, restores collective bargaining power and worker protection for federal workers and lays the foundation for a $15 minimum wage. Minimum wage is a short-term fix to this. It's not going to affect anything because it's only going to drive the prices up. Right now, we can't manufacture enough stuff. There's not enough widgets to manufacture for people to go out and buy widgets. Nobody has a decent job. And basically, all you're going to do is just piss off a bunch of people who have $15 an hour jobs, who have crawled up the ladder to get there, and now everybody else is at that ladder. Because do you think that they're going to get a raise? No. No. Maybe in some cases, but I guarantee in most cases these people are not going to get a raise because that job is not worth that much to the company. It never was. That's why they didn't pay that much. I've been in jobs that are above $15 an hour. I've been in jobs below. Both jobs had their place there for a reason. It was a matter of skill, a matter of how long it takes to learn the job, a matter of how much skill you walked into the job with. This is just a factor of it. So, 30 executive orders in 3 days. That is an unprecedented average. It's absolutely ridiculous. And to be honest, at this rate, what will he have? I would say roughly 3,000 something by the end of the year, if he keeps going at this rate. I mean, I don't doubt it. By the way, there's also crazy stuff going down in Syria. They're ramping up the amount of equipment that they have there. By the way, we've already been there. There's no invasion. I'm sure you guys might have seen an article saying that the U.S. has moved a convoy into northern Syria. It's not true. It's actually eastern Syria, and it's a relatively normal... Well, I wouldn't call it entirely normal because they've just ramped up the number of military vehicles that they have there by quite a bit. But it's not an invasion. I don't think it is, at least. It might be. Not right now. Maybe later on. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, whether we have a new God King Emperor or not. God King Emperor Joe Biden in his administration of priests and priestesses. Or if I'm just freaking out over nothing and, that all of this government widespread obsession of just doing it by one guy saying, I want this, so I'm going to have it. It's not that big of a deal, I guess. It might not be. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching, and please like and share these videos. It really helps me out, really keeps the information going, and really pisses off a lot of liberals.